Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear, valued, lovely listener or watcher, if you're catching us live on the stream, as we go live straight away after what was, quite frankly, an appalling performance from Arsenal at Villa Park today. We're in February 2021, and not only are we all stuck at home having to deal with this effing pandemic for what seemed like forever, we're also having to deal with what, frankly, was, I felt, a pretty depressing performance. And the reason why it's a depressing performance, and I'll introduce our guests in a minute, but I've got to go soapbox just for a couple of minutes, is that what I saw today was pre-Christmas Arsenal. And what I mean by that is a team that had absolutely nothing in the final third. Now, there was a couple of instances where we could have fashioned a few chances. There was a few knocks, a few deflections that fell into Emi Martinez's hands. But frankly, I found that a really turgid and depressing watch. And so I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes talking to you about it. So unlucky. And I'm going to bring some friends in because I'm sure they're going to have their say as well. So let's introduce them from top right as you're watching this. So if you're listening to it, that's going to sound a little bit weird. But top right is Paul, which is Invincible. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. It's the hope that kills you in the end.
It's the hope that kills you. Yes, indeed. Mark, bottom right. All right, Trooper?
Yeah, another weekend ruined, and it's not even, 2:30. So, yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Arsenal.
And we have the man from over the pond, Mr. Tactics. I really, really want to get your view. I'm going to move to you first, actually, Mike. Say hello and then talk to me initially about the starting lineup and then what happened in the opening and exchanges, please. Because did Arteta get it wrong from a tactical point of view, or was he let down by just lackluster individual performances today?
Yeah, well, hello, everybody. The starting lineup I thought was fair and right, and in my opinion, which is, what does that matter? But so that was fine. I felt Pepe needed to start because he deserved to start over Aubameyang, and so no problem there. And the two changes were enforced. So starting lineup certainly wasn't the problem today. The problem today was that the first half looked like extra time. I was looking at it thinking, what does this look like? You know? I mean, I could just say the first half looked like the way you should look in the second half where you're more fatigued and tired, but it looked beyond that. It was just so slow, but it just looked so sloppy and leggy, lazy in their movement, and not much running off the ball. So, and what you would expect from a team and excuse them in extra time in a football match because they don't have any legs anymore. And then you look at the second half, and I know that they were losing and they had no choice, but we saw a team with energy and zip and ball movement and tempo. But how many times this season have Arsenal played well in two halves? Was it the West Brom game and then the last game maybe, or the one before that? But the list is less than five. And the first tactical point I'll put in, I understand why Arsenal do this, is the connector is Smith Rowe. And Smith Rowe had a very quiet first half because we weren't moving the ball quickly enough across the field. Now, he positions himself on the opposite side of the field to where the ball is. It's very interesting. And that's a tactical thing. If you can get the ball across the field quickly, you've got an overload on the other side. So he's not there for the first pass. And if you watch that first half, you'll see that. He's almost invisible. So, but that's not, the coach has asked him to do that, and it's not his fault if the ball's not being hit across the field quickly enough to use that overload. So I don't know what was said or not said or why they started so sluggish and slowly. I suppose the goal probably had a bearing on it, and they were just in shock, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Mark, do you think that goal basically chucked everything out the window? And how much do you want to throw Cedric under the bus for this? Because he's been good for the last few games, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has been good. He's done a good job when you consider he's right footer playing over that side, and we all sort of like creamed our pants about his crossfield ball at West Brom, I think it was, wasn't it? But he's always going to get maybe caught out eventually. Today, I mean, you've got to be. Everyone knows you've got to be switched on right from the off. And unfortunately, I don't know what he was doing. The little layback, just it was awful. You know, he didn't execute it properly. Mate, even if it's the right idea, he didn't execute it properly, and left Gabriel in no man's land. And then Holding in the middle just really doubled up on the issue by ball watching and not being anywhere near aware of where Watkins was. Made it far too easy. And then obviously with the deflection as well, left, right, you know, you got to feel sorry for Ryan. 3 minutes into his debut, he's undone by a deflection. But no, I think it goes back to what Mike says. It's just, whilst that goal will knock you off, everything you've spoken about, Arteta's probably in there going, right, let's keep it tight. And in 3 minutes, it's gone out the window, not due to any great attacking play by Villa, but by self-implosion as usual. It does knock you back, but that doesn't really excuse the next 42 minutes of football, which, as Mike said, it looked like a team who were playing the second half of extra time. They looked really, really leggy, really slow, and pretty much lacking in the kind of quick interplay, which unfortunately is literally the only thing we've got at the moment. The interplay between Saka, ESR, and like when Lacazette can get involved, and when Party starts that with his balls. If we haven't got that, then we really kind of do struggle, particularly once you're 1-0 down and Villa are going to kind of defend that.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of comments through Facebook and also through YouTube. Please put your comments in. We'll try to read out. Paul, our resident guru on the chats, is going to feature any of the interesting things that come up. Obviously, Stephen Duran has said rubbish, and Ryan Purser has said rubbish. Hard to disagree with that. And Hilal on YouTube has said, what does Willian actually bring to the team? Trust me, Hilal, let's get through this. I will certainly have plenty to say about Willian, because frankly, the guy is a joke. But let's come to that. We'll go chronologically in terms of how this game panned out. Paul, any more thoughts on that first half? Anyone that stood out for you as not being pants?
It's a well-phrased question there. I tweeted, I think, at the end of the first half, that the only person that I felt had kind of done anything decent was Xhaka, funnily enough. I thought he was putting in some great through balls. He was trying his hardest to try and tie up the defense, which looked a bit looked shaky. I think most of the back line had a pretty shoddy game. Gabriel seemed a little headstrong. He seems like he's even a simple pass seems like a huge mission to him. Bellerin, as we mentioned before, was shit. Cedric didn't have his finest game. Holding was Holding. I think Holding is probably one of the most consistent players over the last few games. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he always seems to be the one in the air, like retrieving the ball. And I think in that first half, the only person that kind of redeemed himself a little bit was Xhaka, to be honest.
I thought Xhaka and Partey were okay in the middle of the park. I thought Partey in the first half, Partey gave the ball away a couple of times, which I was a bit disappointed with. If you think about how he started the Wolves game, his precision with his passing, within the first few seconds, he's putting the ball on an absolute plate to Saka. And what we saw today was Partey just maybe trying a little bit too hard. But I want to talk about fullbacks now, because Mike, I think we've got a real issue here, because if you compare, I don't think Aston Villa were any great shakes, if I'm completely honest. I thought, they got a deflected goal at the beginning and they had a couple of chances, which Ryan, credit to him, Matt Ryan, he's had a good game today, I thought. But I thought that Aston Villa were all right, but their fullbacks did what you'd expect fullbacks to do. They made blocks, they cut off passing lanes. There was instances, though, when we've got the ball and we're pressing forward, and I saw very little from our fullbacks to get me excited. What I'm talking about defensively, average at best, I'd say, Mike. But going forward, I mean, there was one particular instance where we'd sprung the ball from back to front, and Bellerin's got the ball on the right-hand side, and you've got Saka that's just going in between. He's looking for the pass in behind the fullback and the centre-half. He's made a good run, and Bellerin just P-rolls a pass straight to, I think it was, I don't know if it's Cash or Target that's playing left-back, but one of those fullbacks who just straight at him. And I genuinely feel like we have an issue with Bellerin, because I just don't think technically he's that great. And although we can say Cedric is at fault for the goal, you know, he's a right back playing at left back, and I think he's an average right back for the Premier League, which is who we are, an average Premier League team. You know, we're stuck mid-table. Chances are we're going to drop a place or two after this defeat today, given the games in hand that we've lost as well. But Mike, talk to me about your thoughts on what happened with the fullbacks today.
Well, Cedric did not have a good game, but I'm not going to be a fan that says Cedric was brilliant one week, brilliant the week before, and now I want to get rid of him, but he can't play left back and all those reactionary things. So he just had a poor game, and of course it started in the first minute, and his touch was just off. So that's that. Bellerin, I've been over Hector Bellerin for many, many years, so I just don't know if this is going to sound a scratch record to people that have heard me talk about Hector Bellerin, but Hector Bellerin essentially did what he does most every single week. To me, he's a 7 out of 10 defender, and he's a 6 out of 10 at best attacker. And people seem to think it's the other way around, and that's fine. Everyone's, of course, entitled to their own opinion. But Hector Bellerin gets the ball on the right wing every single week and passes it backwards over and over and over. And sometimes, of course, that's the right idea because you want to switch play or give it to a more gifted player. But if you play again for Arsenal Football Club, I think Arsenal Football Club deserve a right back that has the talent and the will to try it occasionally to beat his fullback or play a 1-2 or whatever it might be. Because whether you're categorized as a right back, a defender, you spend the vast majority of your time playing for a top club on the wing. So you have no choice but to practice what you're going to do in that situation. And Hector Bellerin is just passive. He just gets the ball and just passes the buck. That sums it all up to me, that phrase. Hector Bellerin just always passes the buck. Every once in a while, you'll see him make a good run off the ball, which is his strength, off the ball. And if he's played the ball, then he's in and his crossing is decent at best. But he has so much possession for Arsenal. If you saw the statistics of how, in a game, how much ball Hector Bellerin has compared to most fullbacks in the league, he has such a high number of touches. And what he does with those touches is just simply pass the buck. So to me, when Tierney's fit, of course, Tierney plays and Cedric plays on the right. And then next season, Arsenal, and I've been saying this for many, many seasons, Arsenal need a better right back. They need somebody who is a 7, 8, 9 out of 10 defender, because that's his main job, and a far greater threat, a guy that has multiple, he's a Swiss Army knife of a fullback is what we need. A guy, I mean, Hakimi Ashraf is the guy who's is currently at Inter is one. You got Lamptey at Brighton. There's Reece James if Tuchel continues to not play him. You got guys who, when they receive the ball, they can pass and move, they can run off the ball, but they can beat you with power, pace, skill. Arsenal need and deserve somebody who has more strings to their bow than Hector Bellerin.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I have an affection for Hector Bellerin. He's come through we pinched him from Barcelona, but he's come through the ranks at the club and he's been unfortunate with injuries. And he looked like one hell of a player when he had pace and when he was getting beyond people and in a different team. But I think we need to, I'm with you, Mike. I'm on the boat with you, mate. We need to move away from Hector Bellerin because performances like today are all too often. I want to move on to...
I want to throw one thing in here, Chris, is just from throw-ins alone, the guy needs to, I don't know, if he's not doing a foul throw-in, he's picking the worst possible. I mean, the number of times in that game that he put us under pressure by making the wrong choice at throw-ins, like when we're in our half and we need to get it up, he's always giving it to some guy who's under pressure and we're losing control, and it put us under huge pressure, and it happens a lot of time. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right, mate. You're right, and it's frustrating.
He took one towards the end of the game to Aubameyang, who'd admittedly come for it, but it was never going to go anywhere. And literally, we lost the ball straight away, which led to them having a shot. That's to go reinforce Paul's point. I think I agree. We need an upgrade there quite desperately.
Yeah.
For the
Do you know
next
what?
season.
Do you know? I thought to myself, when was it? I think it was. Who were we playing at right back just in the Invincible season, just before Lauren joined? And I remember we signed Lauren, and I thought to myself, why are we signing him? Do we really need him? But it became clearly obvious. I'll tell you a second example of that. When we signed Monreal, I thought, what are we signing Monreal for? We've got Gibbs. The guy's young, he's English, he's a decent left back, he seems good. Why are we signing him? But it quickly became apparent just the dearthing quality from Gibbs's perspective compared to Monreal. And that's where we're at, I think, with Bellerin. I think we need to look beyond what we've got. And a really good shout out, Simon Tilley on Facebook has said he misses Tierney. I tell you what, Simon, we all miss Tierney. And somebody said to me on Twitter earlier on today, imagine an equivalent of Tierney on the right-hand side with Tierney, how different we would be as a side. So that's just food for thought, I think. But let's talk about contentious points. Now, Mark, you and I have a running bit of banter on Twitter, whereby whenever I question every decision, any decision from a referee, you put a picture of a Premier League referee pulling a slightly confused sort of face. Was it Conta? Should he have been sent off? Your opinions, please.
Personally speaking, and I know again I'm going to be in a minority here, I don't think he should have been sent off. No, I mean, apart from anything, when you look and to be, I'm not quite sure why BT Sport, they may have looked at it post game, I don't know, but I'm not too sure why they never even looked at it at all at half time. They must have thought it was so inconsequential it didn't deserve it. But when you see the challenge, Saka and Konza are both challenging for the ball. They're side by side. There's Saka's got to fight for the ball. Konza's got to fight for the ball. That's football. Konza catches him and he does foul him. Yeah, but I don't think it's a red card because of where it is. It's a long way out from the goal. It's quite wide out from the goal. There's a Villa defender in the centre who's probably 5 yards behind the parallel line for the ball. But I would say it's not denying and the rule is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. I don't believe it's an obvious goal scoring opportunity for that reason. So I don't think it was a red card. I know that goes against things, and particularly I knew what today was going to be like, given what happened earlier this week. That we would be going absolutely mental with any single decisions that didn't go our way. And lo and behold, you had one that was enough of a controversy to get people going. I didn't think it was a red card, but I understand that a lot of people will. There were people posting clips of Arteta getting sent off at Palace a good few years back and saying, what's the difference? But there were differences which I can't be asked going into, but because it's just too easy. We're football fans. It's an emotive sport, and we love our team, and we all want to think if it's not the team, then it must be the bent referees going against us, rather than look at actually the problems of our own making. So I understand that, but I didn't think it was a red.
I mean, I think I'm sort of on the boat with you. I think so my issue is the reason it's been compounded is because you've got Bruno Fernandes. So we've seen instances where VAR are taking situations that look horrendous in slow motion, or when you've got like video stills or that sort of stuff, and they're saying, hold on, ref, have a look at that, that's a red card. And we've fallen foul of that a couple of times. So you look at the Bruno Fernandes situation, and then you look at the Aubameyang situation last season against Crystal Palace. It seems to I think the frustration amongst fans is, it seems to me that unless players start screaming every time the ball's touched, like the challenge against Newcastle on Smith Rowe, where the guy was basically not touched but screamed because he wanted to get Smith Rowe sent off, and then VAR thankfully came in our favour. Because we're seeing this sort of stuff, and because we're then seeing what's happened, so you've got the Fernandes situation, you've then got the Luiz situation from midweek, you're right. It's then pent up into a right. If anyone touches any of our players now, then we're going to say, well, hold on a second. What's the issue here? We're always looking for a pantomime villain. Right now, it's VAR and the refs. But I make you right. If that had been an Arsenal player, I'd have been really cheesed off. But at the same time, there's a tiny bit at the back of my head, which is if that had been David Luiz, it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd have been sent off. But let's move on. Go on.
A lot of people said that as well. Oh, if that was Luiz, it's a red card, which is an easy thing to say. No, David Luiz is just a poor defender, and each time he's been sent off, he's deserved to be sent off, and it's his own fault he's been sent off. So I don't know why people bother going on about it. Yeah, just look at you just look at David Luiz rather than looking at the other stuff. But and I get it completely. The Bruno Fernandes one on Xhaka, I mean, that should be a red card. It's a horrendous foul. Knows what he's doing. The only intention is to do what he did, and he should get a red card for that. Today, and going back to your point about the scream, I think Partey caught one of their players and he screamed, and the ref then came back and booked Partey for it. But one of their players, Trezeguet, I think, clobbered Xhaka at one point, but he didn't go back and book him. So I do understand that there's an awful lot of inconsistencies. No one thinks that refs are poor in this country. They are incompetent. And they've actually managed to take a tool which should make it easier for them to do a better job and actually make it worse. Only in this country, only in the Premier League, could you actually take a tool that's supposed to make their job easier and make things worse. Yeah, that's what, and I get why everyone's getting, but I think also you need to look at an incident and you need to just actually look at it and think, hold on, let me just take the fact that I'm really mad about this out of the equation and look at what's happened. And and don't try and judge that on the fact that Bruno Fernandes should have got sent off for his tackle on Xhaka, because at the end of the day, it has no bearing on it. Look at each action individually and not as part of some wider conspiracy thing. But I do understand why people think that we are hard done by, because it seems that way. But look, all fans of every club probably think they get harder decisions going against them than they get going in their favour.
Yeah, and Paul, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Lee Dixon agrees with you, Mark. He was on the DSTV show we watch in South Africa. He was the halftime pundit, and he said there's no way that that's a red card. It's so far. I mean, it's practically in the other half. There's this whole slew of defenders running back that are likely to get there at around the same time Saka would have, and there was a little bit of handbags and shirt pulling and stuff, but from both sides, because actually, the concept of pulled Saka's shirt and Saka pulled his shirt. It was a bit of a mess. But what was interesting, and this is kind of it has to do with your talk about refs, is I'm sure there's a tendency for us to want to believe that they're corrupt and not just incompetent. Because obviously we've got a cognitive distortion that every time it happens to us, it only happens to us. I think we are unlucky. I think that a lot of decisions seem to not go our way that have gone, the other way in other matches, sometimes on the same weekend. But I think Arsene Wenger had said at one stage that there were only 2 leagues that had professional match officials, and neither of them had referees that were chosen to represent in the World Cup. Isn't that kind of telling? The PG, MOL, none of them invited to referee at the World Cup because basically I think that they make the wrong decision a lot of time. It's a real cabal. They back each other up in their shitty decisions, and it's tough.
Okay, but I mean, we've spent 3 minutes talking about referees, and I really don't think that we should probably dwell on that too much more, because let's be honest, the performance this wasn't like Wolves. This was totally different in that this was a pre-Christmas Arsenal. It was not very good. And let's talk about that, Paul. Let's me and you just chat just for a second about that second half. I was expecting, so what's been happening post-Christmas is that first 10, 15 minutes, we've seen Arsenal come out with an intensity that has seen us really get over the line in terms of getting results. We saw it against Southampton. We've seen it we went up 2-1 at half-time by Southampton, but we've seen it in almost every game. The Wolves game we thought was an outlier, but to be honest with you, I'm starting to think that actually that Wolves first half, that's the outlier. We all talked about that's the blueprint, But much like all those years ago, when we managed to carve out a decent defensive performance with Coquelin and Cazorla in that 2-0 Manchester City win away from home, and everyone said, oh, is this the blueprint for Arsenal to start playing against the big teams? No, that was an outlier. My worry and concern is that the Wolves' first half was an outlier, because today just gave us more of pre-Christmas Arsenal. And what did you make of that second half? Because as Mike said, he thought we were better in the second half. And yes, we were a bit, but I still felt like it was just a real slog getting anything. As soon as we got into the final third, everything just felt difficult. And I don't really recall Martinez making too many world-beating saves. Do you?
You're on mute,
And
Paul.
he's on mute. And he's on mute. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Am I on mute?
Classic. It's the pandemic. It's the pandemic bingo, and he's on mute. Go on, mate.
Too many buttons to press. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Go.
I was just going to say, I felt kind of throughout the game that we were more likely to concede than score.
Yep.
And I think that's because we didn't see the Pepe that was supposed to be on fire and who was going to light up the league. I think he resorted to his same, like making the wrong decision 8 out of 10 times. Yes, Emile Smith-Rowe kind of had a difficult game. I think I don't think he was as effective as he has been. Lacazette didn't really have a lot to do. The one time he did have a chance to put Saka through, I don't know if that was, in fact, I think it was in the first half. But I just feel like, the second half was dominated by forwards that, Aubameyang, I actually didn't realize he'd come on, didn't even touch the ball. It was shocking. And then Willian, I'm sure we'll get to Willian, but, when you just name those players and the game management and the choices and all that kind of stuff, I honestly didn't really ever believe that we looked like we were going to score, to be honest. And putting crosses in at head height to people, they seem incapable of hitting the ball. I'm not sure what that's about. That just seems like a complete waste.
Yeah, and Sean Egan has said he needs, we need Oban to. Sean Egan on the Facebook has said we need Oban to show up. We've had Simon again saying we aren't far away. We just need a bit of luck and defending. Sharon Watson says we're very poor. Jonathan King says refs are not consistent enough, but we weren't good enough in the final third today. That's a really good point, Jonathan, because I think we were poor in the final third. Mike, you do a blog for Gunners Town called Positives, Hopes, Needs, Wants. Can you take some positives from that second half or not?
Yeah. I thought Odegaard looked like the player that I think he is. He raised the tempo 2 notches when he came on. Everything was 1 touch, 2 touch. There were 2 wonderful balls behind the defence. I thought his cameo compared to the rest of the players out there, he was on a different level. So, that gives us big hope because he's not played much. And, Smith-Rowe has been a little quiet the last few games and maybe needs a physical rest as well. And then if we can bring that guy in, that's going to raise the tempo in the first half, as I said, Chris, because we have a major first half problem at Arsenal. So that was a huge one. And kudos to the keeper. He did everything that he was asked to do. And he did it very well. As he had a lot of shots that he had to push to the right place, didn't he? And he pushed them away from the Villa players or off for a corner, which was, very good. But Arsenal have a clear penalty box problem, boys. So, I don't know if you want me to go into that. That's not a positive.
Do it.
Okay. Well, that to me was the difference in the game. Paul makes a good point. Villa looked like they were far more likely to score, even though they had, 30% possession or whatever it was, because they have players who are more dangerous in the final third, more confident in the final third, and they have a system that is very well balanced. Now, this is what Arsenal have got. They've got, in Pepe, they've got an inconsistent winger. Of course, he's been very good recently, but you just don't know what you're going to get. I don't think anybody would ever disagree with that statement. You just don't know what you're going to get. Versus, you look at someone like Jack Grealish, who you do know what you're going to get. With Lacazette, I think Lacazette is the major problem. Lacazette has been very, very good recently, but most of all of his very good is from outside the box. He links play very well. This new combination with Smith-Rowe has worked a dream, and I'm not saying you necessarily have to drop Lacazette, but when the ball gets past him, he it's like, it's not my favorite thing to do. I prefer to link play. And he seems to lose interest. It's very, very odd. He floats around the penalty spot when there are 6-yard tap-ins week in, week out. And the first half, that was just most frustrating to me. The ball was there to be slid across the 6-yard box, and he's standing on top of Smith Rowe in the same position. And he's the centre forward. He should be far more goal hungry. But the penalty box problem that he has is far more than his lack of movement. And this is why I think he needs replacing. And it's a shame because he's playing well. And part of me says give him another 1-year contract so he's worth more, and he has deserved it. But his movement in the box, I don't know if a striker in the Premier League has weaker movement in the box. It's almost like he goes to mark himself. The number of times he went and stood next to Tyrone Mings and just stood next to him and bodied him. And the ball's about to come in. And I'm thinking, Tyrone Mings versus Lacazette. It's a non-contest. Lacazette's not quick enough. He's not good enough in the air. He's clearly his movement. He doesn't have any movement in the box. He just makes straight line runs. There's never a run for the defender and a run to get open. When Aubameyang came on, the one thing he did was that scrap in the 6-yard box where they all collided together. And if you watch that, Aubameyang starts moving in, out, and the defenders don't know where he's going to go. And he created somewhat of a chance. Okay, and there's the difference there. But then you go to Aubameyang, when you stick Aubameyang at centre forward and you hit the ball in the air, same as with Lacazette, 10% chance, 5% chance you're going to get a goal. And these guys are centre forwards primarily, and that's just not good enough. I'm sorry. Just like I say Hector Bellerin should get to the training field and figure out a trick and a way to beat somebody, your centre forward, if he's not very good in the air and he doesn't have good movement, go practice it. Go practice it. And Saka was just... he was fouled out of the game in the first half, wasn't he? He was fouled 7 times. They were just knocking him down every time he got the ball. But Arsenal have a proper, serious penalty box problem, and there's just no balance. There's such a lack of the fundamental skills that a striker needs, and there's not a single option that we have that offers all of the tools that you need, or even a balance where you've got one guy that's strong and good in the air, and the other guy that's quick and a good finisher. There's nothing there, that gives you confidence when the ball's out wide that we're going to get a goal. The only time I feel that, Chris, is when there's a cutback. And Erdegaard had one chance of a cutback. It's the only time I feel we're going to score.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Sean Egan's got an option. He's got an option on the Facebook, and that is Martinelli. And frankly, I mean, it could be an idea. It could be an idea to have Martinelli in because it's not working. Simon on Facebook said that Laka has to play. Simon, I absolutely agree with you. Laka does have to play for another team. Mark, let's talk about the next few games and actually the rest of the season, because I don't know about you, but right now, and maybe this is just the post-match rage that everyone always feels after a defeat, but I kind of feel like the season's probably just petering out at this stage, isn't it? Our next 3 games are Leeds at home, might get a win there. Man City at home, probably a defeat. Leicester away, right now I feel like probably a defeat. And if Partey is injured again, and can we also take a second to question how the hell did Atletico Madrid, how the hell did Thomas Partey get through, 7 years at Atletico Madrid and get in total, he's had about 6 games he's missed in 6 years or 7 years, something ridiculous. And he's essentially, if he's missing again, if this is an injury other than cramp, we are now going to be missing Partey for a period of time. How the hell are we managing his rehabilitation? Sorry, there's 2 questions there, Mark. So number 1 is next few games, and what do you stay with the season, and what's going to happen? Where do you sit with Partey?
Partey is difficult for any of us to know really the extent of what the injury is, whether it's still coming on from the bad thigh injury that he had, or whether he's just struggling at the moment with the pace of the game. I mean, look, he's come from playing for Atletico Madrid in the Spanish league, and he's come to the Premier League where every single week is a battle. Every single week he's going to have to work hard. So, maybe he's just having to get used to that. So, we'll have to see. I'm sure Partey will come good, and we need him to be fair. As for the rest of the season, those 3 games coming up, Leeds are a hot and cold team. They'll either be dog shit or they'll be well beaters. So
You
who
know
knows
they'll be
what
well
happens.
beaters against us, don't you? They'll have
It's the normal.
greatest
Yeah,
defense
that's
and the greatest attack that you've ever seen.
yeah, that's the normal way it works out, isn't it? And then obviously City and Leicester, two good teams that we're gonna struggle to get anything out of. In terms of league positioning, yeah, I think you need to, if you want to get in, top four is way over
Done.
the hill, and then if a top four team wins the FA Cup, which is kind of normal, then fifth and sixth will get Europa. I'm not even sure we can get to six, although there will be a lot of change in the games that are coming up. So yeah, I think Arteta probably needs to think about what he's going to do and start looking at who he wants to play, who he thinks is going to be there. He's got two players on loan that he's going to need to think about. Is he going to have the opportunity to have them, even if he wanted them, one or both of them? I mean, I sincerely hope that Ødegaard will come good, because I do think, I agree with Mike, he could be an absolutely top quality player. But he's going to have to look and try and do some different things. And I mean, Martinelli, you see a lot of people saying, why doesn't Martinelli get on instead of Willian? And it's a really good question. But you have to remember that Martinelli's injury, he spent a lot of time on the bench under Arteta already during that period. So I don't know, is there something about Martinelli that doesn't quite fit in with Arteta, or does he just not feel he's match fit, or does he just feel that he's got better, that Martinelli can only really play that wide left forward role and he's got better options? So we need to see what that's about. But yeah, Willian, you see Willian coming on and your heart sinks. I worry about the subs as well, because the subs seem to a lot of the time kill a lot of the momentum. We're doing quite well. We've got quite a head of steam. He brings a sub and it sets us back, and it takes us like 5 to 10 minutes to get back into that groove, and then he might make another one. Certainly, I don't think the Willian one gave us anything whatsoever.
Well, I'll tell you what then, Mark.
I don't know. Experimentation, maybe.
I'm going to give a free swim to everyone here on Willian, but I'm going to push ahead of you and dive into the pool first, because frankly, that professional footballer is in retirement village at Arsenal. He has taken his money and said, I tell you what, this is brilliant. I get to live in London. I get to not move house, and I can just tick along with Arsenal, because literally the second he came on, talk about the biggest downgrade you've ever seen. Thomas Partey, who's progressive, who controls the ball, who the way he just moves his body, like there are literally players a yard away from Thomas Partey and they don't know if he's going left or right. Willian comes onto the pitch. He doesn't take anybody on the left. He doesn't drive at anybody. He miscontrols the football. He gave Aston Villa a really good chance where he essentially passed to a Villa player in our final third. Who wants to have the second boot in on Willian, who is going to work out to be the single worst free transfer in the history of the Premier League? Who wants to go next? Because Mark's had his little player. Go on then, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's all linked to pride. I think Arteta went hard on him what's that?
Spot on.
Yeah, I think Arteta apparently went in on him on the summer. He was the one who really pushed hard for Edu as well, and they pushed the boat out to get him, hence his massive wage and what have you. So I think it's pride. I think that the coach wants to make Willian the player Willian was at Chelsea the last few seasons, and so that's why he gets chance after chance after chance. What he has to be very careful of is that there are players being left out of the matchday squad. One yesterday who would be a far better option. Reece Nelson actually tore up the reserve game, just a reserve game. But so he's being left out of the matchday squad. Balogun could be in there. Martinelli could be on the field. Absolutely. And, what happens if, and this is a real possibility, what happens if, Martinelli sort of knocks on the coach's door at the end of the season and says, my agent's had some offers from, all these big clubs, and you're not playing me, and I really want to go. And so he's left, Martinelli leaves, and he's left with Willian. And he looks back and thinks, wow, I don't even want Willian. But for some reason, my pride got in the way, and I decided to play this guy to try and, get some form out of him. And now I've lost both of them. I've lost, Willian's no good to me. So he's, and Martinelli's decided to leave. And there's others as well. So that's the other thing that you've got to be careful of. I didn't also understand why we got two central midfielders on the bench. We had a central midfielder go off and we threw I don't know what system we were playing at the end, but Ceballos and El Neni were on the bench. So, but why do we bring on Willian? That was astonishing decision, but somebody else.
It's got to be something to do with Willian does really good Brazilian barbecues, and Arteta likes himself a Brazilian barbecue, and he's thinking to himself, I want to get invited as soon as we all come out of lockdown. So if I keep playing him, I'm going to get invited to one of Willian's Brazilian barbecues, because frankly, it was like as we've had Jonathan King, we've had Webster and White Parker has said Willian is like basically getting a red card. It was essentially like we were down to 10 men. He's that pointless. Paul, just before we wrap up for the day, do you want to let's just all of us stick the knife in on Willian, because I don't think anybody wants him at the club. And do you know what? If you're watching this, then you will have seen. But if you're listening to this as a podcast, you wouldn't have seen. So I'm going to just tell you the absolute shudder that I had to do there when Mike mentioned the idea of Gabriel Martinelli knocking on the door of Arteta's office and saying, I'm going to go because you're playing Willian all the time. But Paul, away you go.
It's almost not worth it. We waste so much energy. We've been wasting energy on talking about Willian and trying to understand why Arteta is playing him. I have not the faintest fucking clue. I don't know if it's maybe Edu and the Brazilian contact. I mean, that side of it. I have no idea. It's for footballing reasons. There's absolutely no reason to bring Willian even on the bus. Honestly, he should not be even traveling with the club. There must be better things for him to do.
He should be on the bus, but the bus should be a bus where he's the only person. He should be the only person on the bus, and the bus should be rerouted to Skegness. And he should get a phone call from Arteta saying, "Oh, mate, I don't know how that's happened. Oh well, can't use you today. Maybe next week." And that happens every week.
Yeah, but going back to what you were saying about the season is, this has been such a crazy season, and we were literally flirting with relegation like 7 or 8 games ago. Like I said in the very beginning of this podcast, it's the hope that kills you. We had a run of games where it looked like we were starting to find our groove. The sum looked like it was, greater than the sum of its parts. And the first half against Wolves, I think, gave us a glimpse. You said might be an outlier. I think it gives us an idea of what we can come to expect. Honestly, I'm gonna do Mike's positive needs and hopes on this thing, and I'm going to say that I do think that we're getting better and better. We were unlucky with that first goal. It was a stupid error, and they punished us for it. And then we were on the back foot all the way through. Villa played well. They were solid in defence. We've been solid in defence. At times when our attack is working together, it looks promising. I think if we can break through, I think things will start to flow, and I think we can fight our way up, because here's the great thing about it is that teams like United and Liverpool and that lot down the road are all fucking up, left, right, and centre against shittier teams than Villa. I think that the season is it's taking its toll on all the players in their bubbles. It's there. It's kind of, I think it's there for everybody just to kind of, it's being shooken up so much that, whether you land, or snake eyes or whatever the opposite of that is down to chance and fine margins. I can't predict what's going to happen, but I'm not going to be as negative as I was 2 months ago, because I do think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Sorry, sorry about that.
That's all right, and I think we're getting up to the 45 minutes mark, so we'll probably wrap this up for the day. But what I would say is just my closing Jerry Springer-esque thoughts is that if you're listening to us or if you're watching us live, I feel like we should just be writing off this season right now.
Hey, Joe Willock.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's a possibility for excitement for next season. So, Joe, if you're listening to this post the live podcast that we're doing in the virtual pub, then you'll obviously know what the Newcastle score is. Hopefully Joe Willock's had an absolutely fantastic game, but life is too short, guys. We need to accept that we're in a weird situation. As much as I am cheesed off about Arsenal, as much as they're going to ruin my weekend, I'm going to finish this podcast, and I'm turning to rugby, for crying out loud. I'm going to end up watching the Six Nations. I mean,
No,
this is horrendous, but
things aren't that bad.
life is too short. You know, we all know that. I think we all knew deep down that this season was probably a busted flush before Christmas. You know, we just need to make sure that we bumble along. But what we need to start to see is some changes in certain personnel. And I just don't think that's going to happen until the summer. So for me, I'm still optimistic. I still have hope that Arteta can turn us into one of the best teams in the league. We need to just get out of this pandemic. We need to get out of this season. And we need to just get on. So chin up, Arsenal fans. Lads, Mike, Mark, Paul, it's been an absolute delight just to chew the fat with you and to get some catharsis through the system. Thank you very much for coming on, Paul.
Thank you. Up the Gunners.
Mark, good to see you as always, sir.
Yes, you too, mate. Look forward to meeting in person at a game soon and having a few beers.
Yes, a little bit of
far too long.
Little bit of an Estrella in the Duchess would be lovely. Andrew Fife and his Ponzi wine. He can have that if he wants. But Mike, good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, guys.
And we will see you next time on the post-match pub. Catch you later for Leeds.